Well, I'm so excited to have you. This has been like long overdue. We originally first met virtually during COVID when we started we did like a couple lives together.
It was so fun. And by the way, when I posted about that, it was really fun to see like DMs come in and be like, this is how I was introduced to the Sculpt Society and the workout. And that always makes me so happy to hear.
Oh,
so
that makes me happy too. That was such a dark time, but such a huge time for you, obviously, because it was like we needed a way to work out and you were providing that for us.
Yeah.
Let's go back a little bit to the beginning. And obviously, I know you have so much background in dance, but how did your original love for fitness start and how did you really get into it?
Yeah, it really came from honestly not loving working out. I think coming from a dance background where that was my whole world and what movement looked like, right? I was trained in classical ballet and then high school on the dance team. Like it was just structure around movement and loving that type of movement. Fast forward to, early years in college, trying to figure out a movement practice that felt very foreign. The gym felt very foreign. And unfortunately, didn't have a great relationship with my body image in my early 20s. And that looked like a lot of yo-yo dieting and over-exercising. I always say I have like flashback memories of being at like Crunch Gym, like, on the treadmill for hours, counting every calorie. Like that was my perception of what the gym was, that like almost like torture, right? It was a place that I didn't like to be, but I felt like I had to be. And it really wasn't until I worked on a lot of internal dialogue and like how I was looking at myself and treating myself with my thoughts, but also the missing puzzle piece and healing a lot of that was finding a movement practice that felt joyful and fun. And it really wasn't until I started teaching fitness in New York. So I was auditioning for professional dance work, eventually becoming a professional dancer post-college.
Amazing. Which is so hard to do.
It was a grind for sure. I was in fashion for 8 years as a production fit model randomly. That paid the bills. And then I randomly started teaching fitness. And it was, again, not I didn't view that as like, oh, this is going to be a career path. It was just a way to stay in shape and B, like a way to pay the rent.
Yeah. Like teaching at studios or teaching at studios.
Yeah. So I was teaching at a studio and I just really quickly fell in love with connecting with women in a movement practice that was joyful and fun for me, but also for me, it was a way, it was almost cathartic, right? It was such a missing puzzle piece in my healing journey. And to be able to connect with women on how to build confidence within their body in working out really opened my eyes in a big way to like, wow, okay, this is way more impactful and powerful for me than I actually thought it would be.
Right.
You didn't know it was just like a side gig.
Right. You didn't know how much you were actually going to get out of it.
And so I really started to dive into boutique fitness in New York City. It was exploding at the time, and like there was different modalities coming up and popping up and different studios. And so trying to, bar classes and HIIT classes and reformer Pilates and yoga and different dance cardio. And so it was,
many different types.
What was it? I just started to kind of get curious about what it was that I enjoyed and I really loved. And it quickly became apparent to me that the class and the community that I wanted didn't exist yet. I felt like boutique fitness felt very cutthroat. It felt very intimidating. And it felt like you had to be a professional dancer to walk into some of these like sculpt and dance cardio classes. And
to like learn the steps. I know. I'm even still scared of those dance cardio classes.
Yeah.
I know.
And so I just kept thinking to myself, like, this can be done in a different way from my perspective. And that's really how the idea of the Sculpt Society was born. And I launched the Sculpt Society in New York in 2017. I was teaching in different studio spaces. And then I launched the app in November of 2019.
Amazing. I mean, it just goes to show you that how you start in this industry can sort of be linear and there can be a certain path, but the secret sauce is obviously having something that is like personal to you. So explain the method a little bit more.
Yeah. And just going back to that little piece too of like, I think about that dark time in my 20s. And when I was going through it, I was like, why is this happening to me? Why am I going through this? This is like really dark and depressing. And I can look back now and I'm so happy that I did go through that because it has led me into this fitness journey that I would not have gone through had I not been in that place.
You needed to have some perspective on that to really like connect and identify and also have empathy for the women that you were about to then work with.
Which, by the way, as a woman, on some level, on some spectrum, listening to this, you can relate to that feeling of not feeling confident in your body and how we can relate back to movement and building that confidence. So I do think it resonates on some level for most women.
100%. What was the moment? Do you remember a moment where you were like, whoa, I'm spinning out of control and I need to get myself, like, was there like a rock bottom moment for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a really like not, it's just like not a fun, like, no, I think it's important to talk about. So I was constantly like on a yo-yo diet, binge cycle. And I remember I had just transferred to NYU and it was like, I was getting ready for my ballet class at like 8 a.m. and I was on a binge of like, I'm just trying to consume everything I'm not quote unquote allowed to eat. And it was 7 a.m. and I was looking for a bakery that was open because I needed a cupcake. And I just remember eating
like
the cupcake.
The desperation and then eating
being
it.
Completely numb, not tasting it at all, filling something up, and just thinking, gosh, I am so sick of this. I am so sick of the time, the energy, and the thought that is going towards what I look like, what I'm consuming. Like, this is never going to end. And so I got to the point where I finished that cupcake and I felt shame. I felt really dark. And then I was like, I need to figure out how to switch this up. And so I read a book called Women, Food, and God by Janine Roth, which is really all about intuitive eating.
Yeah, that's exactly the journey that I'm on right now.
Oh.
Yeah, because I've had a similar experience. I mean, not necessarily like the purging, but just was like not focusing on what I was putting in my body at all, and would just go the whole day without eating. Like, food has never been something that's been, that I sought out to enjoy. So I was like, I really want to figure this out and work with someone. And so I found someone named Elise Resch, who's a nutritionist who's completely focused on intuitive eating.
Amazing.
And nothing good, nothing bad,
Nothing
but just
good,
giving
nothing
yourself what you're like needing, what you're
Which, by the
for.
way, it's really a hard concept for a lot of people to understand, because I think in our society, we want to categorize food as good or bad. And we want to say that intuitive eating, oh, is this a diet? It's not a diet.
It's not a diet.
And understanding that and removing those labels, that takes a really long process. And it took me a long time to understand that. But experiencing the food freedom I now feel, I can look back and it's like, I remember that version of myself, but I am so far removed, like, emotionally from who she was. And it's taken me a long time, but it's so important. So if anyone is listening, like,
that book was amazing.
Was really, really opened my eyes up. And then again, the missing part of that story for me was the movement practice of healing, my relationship with exercise, right? Like, I thought exercise was hours of cardio in the gym.
Was like a grind, and was also part of your existence, and like so much of what you were doing, it wasn't an escape for you anymore.
No.
Yeah.
And so understanding that like movement could really come from a place of joy. So yeah, when I think about the method of the Sculpt Society, it's combining modalities that I love, right? It's reformer Pilates, it's Sculpt, it's lightweight, it's using your body weight for strength, and then you're sprinkling in really easy to follow fun dance cardio. So I always say, like, my dance cardio is very simple and it's repetitive and it's fun. And if that's not your jam, most of my app is actually low impact Sculpt, so full body, and just, again, like, leaning into the joyful side of movement. It's done to the beat of the music. It's not so serious. Again, I think sometimes fitness,
and you're not annoying. Like,
oh, that's nice. Thank you.
Like, I know that sounds crazy, but like, I think it's so, like, you have just this energy about you that is so positive and upbeat without feeling like mocking or condescending, like a fitness instructor can sort of feel like,
I do think dance cardio can sometimes get that bad rap of like this sort of cheerleader, like hyper cheerleader persona. And so I wanted the Sculpt Society to feel athletic and grounded and cool and give that feeling and kind of make you feel like a badass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, today we did, before this, I was lucky enough to do the 15-minute one with you that really felt like really targeted everything that I needed. And it gave me that midday energy boost that I so seldomly actually give myself. But I was like so happy that was part of the day.
Yeah. And I think going back to that, like, I think going back to my early 20s where I thought working out needed to be hours long versus what I've learned so much about movement and that practice and actually how to sustain and build a workout practice is actually leaning into shorter workouts and how powerful just 15 minutes can be in your day and how that can shift your mental health, your emotional well-being. And so I've really started to lean into just helping other women build a sustainable habit around working out.
I think that's what's so important because so many of us don't have that like eagerness for consistency. So if someone were to start on your app, like what would be your recommended way to begin? And like even basically, even if someone is not necessarily doing the app, but just in terms of like approaching fitness, like what is like a mentality or way to really approach it when you're just starting to get into it? Or like feel like you've been in a slump and you want to get back in.
I have a mantra that I really live by, which is commit to less so that you can show up more. So really like take about like commit to shorter workouts so you can consistently show up more. And I really mean that. And it's it's sort of like that diet culture mindset around food. It's the same thing with fitness. Like we are so brainwashed to think that we need so much cardio and so much time in the gym. And that is the hurdle for so many people to build a consistent routine. And I really wish people could actually learn that if they can just consistently show up for smaller chunks, they can build a habit that will last a lifetime.
Right. Why aren't people believing that though? Like what's inhibiting people?
I think it's the same thing with intuitive eating, right? Like removing labels of good and bad. It's very hard for people. They want that. They think that they want that strict structure. And so
we've been programmed.
Yeah, we've been told over and over again.
And that it's calories in, calories out, and all these things.
Which,
we're measuring things by the wrong like calculations.
And sure, if measuring helps you, I just think for most people, measuring macros is a slippery slope from a mental health perspective. I think it just starts to measuring everything that you are eating is just a slippery slope into the next diet.
It's so true.
And if it works for you, great. But from my perspective, it does not work for most people.
Yeah, because I think that people then like this control over it becomes then obsessive, and it becomes that about the control and about the routine as opposed to how the things are like actually making you feel and like enjoying the process, like enjoying the movement, enjoying what you're eating. Like, why aren't we doing things to enjoy them as opposed to doing things because we have to? Yeah.
So I think with food, right? It's like, and I'm not a nutritionist, and I think that's important to say, like talk to a professional if you are looking for that guidance. But like small things that I ask myself, am I hungry? Am I full? Is this food giving me energy? Is it making me feel good? Just little things like that I think that we are just so conditioned to not ask ourselves when we are on diets that are telling us exactly what to eat and how to measure and all of that. And the same thing goes for movement, exactly what you just said. That 15 minutes shifted how you felt. It gave you a little boost of energy. I think if we could just shift how we approach fitness and even lean into more of like the mental health benefits. Like today I want to feel energized. Today I want to feel less stressed. I have a big meeting later. I'm going to get in a little bit of movement before that big meeting so I don't feel as nervous going into it.
And that it's actually achievable. You don't have the pressure being like, I have to do that 45-minute or that hour thing or get to the gym or whatever.
Because over time that's going to build and that habit is so much more powerful than sporadic long workouts over time.
So is that how your workout routine is like right now? Like tell me how you weave it into your life, being a mom, running your app, like training, everything. Like I'm sure it has to work for you too.
Oh, I mean, I practice what I preach and I really do. So on the days that I go live on my app once a week, and then I have, I'd say once a week, either a class in LA or a private training session. The rest of the week I'm having to self-motivate. So I'm right there alongside my community, getting up in the morning, thinking, shoot, I don't feel like working out today, or I'm tired, or I really want to snooze. All of the things. I experience that every single day. But it's that same mantra, commit to less so I can show up more.
Yeah.
Fine, I'm going to put on a 5-minute workout. I can put on a 10-minute workout. Okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to press play. And 9 times out of 10, I'm going to probably stack another 5-minute workout
onto it. Yeah.
And if I can't, great. I've done 5 or 10 minutes. I've physically and mentally shifted how I feel in my body, in my day. I go into the rest of my day, into my meetings, into my relationships with my friends, my family, my work. And I've completely shifted how I feel.
Totally.
And I show up in such a more positive way.
So you're able to get that in every single day.
I do that about 5 to 6 times a week.
Yeah.
And then some days it looks like a walk outside. And that's the thing. I think people, sometimes it's literally just shifting like the room that you're in, right? Get outside, go for a walk, I can't speak. Go get a coffee on a walk outside, get some vitamin D. I know a lot of New Yorkers or people in LA who really struggle with taking a rest day. I was also, when I was back in my early 20s, I worked out 7 days a week. It had to be every single day. It had to be hours long. Those rest days are so important. And if you struggle to actually rest and do nothing, which is, well, I'm sometimes do too, a walk outside is great. A light stretch, some gentle yoga. You can also do an active recovery day as well.
And I'm sure you have all of that on the app too. Like it ranges from like, I'm sure it goes as specific to as broad as, Well, getting into like your day, what does, and I'm sure like me, because I feel like we have similar types of careers, every day kind of looks different. But take me through especially how you fit in time for yourself within those days. Like not only just the schedule, but like how you're thinking about what you need for yourself. Because I know there's just always stuff going on and you need a place for your emotions. So
I think too, taking note, I think with social media, we see busy working entrepreneurial women and we're like, gosh, they're doing it all. It's also important to note that like I have days where I really feel like I'm failing at everything. Most days feel like a hot mess to me, but I'm just showing up to trying to do my best. And I absolutely do not have it all figured out. And I think that's probably how most of us feel. I think the things that have helped me, I have a morning routine. So I get up before my girls do, which we get them up at 7. I'll get up at like 6:15. I'll make myself my lemon water, my coffee. I'll go outside, take a breath. And then I'll do a little bit of my movement, 15, 20 minutes, sometimes 5 if I only have that. If I can squeeze in a guided meditation, great. Most days I'm not. I really would love to get back in. We'll wake up the girls at 7. We'll really have time with them until about like 8:30, 8:45. My oldest will go to preschool. My youngest will go to the park. And then the workday really starts. I will say most of our team is on the East Coast. So it is hard for me to feel like I can truly like get a morning routine without answering emails or getting back to people. So I am used to that. I'm trying to do a better job of just carving out time. Before we jump into our first meeting, I really try and get outside with my husband and go grab coffee. That's oftentimes the first time we have a moment to connect
together.
You know? And I do think, I was actually just talking about this. I think there's something about walking side by side with a man and having conversation. Like they're much better at that
than like the
talking head to head like women are.
Yeah, it's so true. It's like I even for our date nights, like I prefer to do some sort of like activity or a walk or a casual lunch or whatever, as opposed to like the pressure of sitting across from one another. It's like, not because I don't enjoy a lovely meal with my husband, but I think that it's just so nice to have that like casual energy, because I feel like our thoughts then like flow in a different way and we can be more vulnerable. So that's really nice. That's a nice ritual. Yeah.
And then it's like the rest of the day is manic. It's like I'm going from Zoom call to internal team meetings. I'm answering emails. I'm creating content for partnerships. I'm creating content for the app. I'm either, I'm putting together programming for the app. It's pretty crazy. I kind of feel like I'm running a marathon every day at this point.
Like, because you're wearing so many different hats.
I'm wearing so many different hats.
What's the favorite part of what you do? Like, of which hat?
The creative part. That's to me like my zones of genius is the content on the app, on social, the visual aspect of the app, and the creative of like how we are marketing certain drops of athleisure or programming
and how it all looks, like the look and feel and the branding and everything. I know
that's the most fun for me.
It's so fun and it's just aesthetically pleasing and everything. But I think like, do you miss teaching more, or do you feel like you have, because you have your app and your community there, that still fills you up?
So I started teaching once a week in LA.
Okay.
For that reason.
Like for classes?
Like in person.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Not just, I thought you meant,
Wednesday.
Oh my God, I need to come. I was like, I thought you meant you were just teaching like one private a week.
So sometimes it'll be a private. So like we worked out, right? That was my private for the week. But I actually started doing that because so much of how I started, how I started was in New York, really creating community in New York with my IRL classes before I had my app. And I think I want to start to do that and connect with my community here in Los Angeles. And so I've gone back to doing that once a week, and it's been really good for me. You know, like I have to build this class in LA again,
of
right?
course,
And
like build the community in LA. I know. Well, I think it's hard because you did move here during COVID, and you were, you know, obviously focusing so much on the app, and then now you're here and you're building roots, and you're realizing that in-person like vibe is something necessary. Yeah. And we all want that now. I think we're yearning for it even more after COVID, you know?
Totally. And I think we're seeing that behavior, but what's wonderful is like we're seeing the behavior of like, yes, people are going back to their in real life experiences, but it's not the same way that they were doing it before COVID.
Yeah.
It's a mix. They've figured out what works for them online, and then they're mixing that in with some IRL classes. But I think, I mean, as a busy mom, like I don't know. There's just the time and the financial savings from an online program. If it works for you, it's like
I know. I do a little mix of both because it's the same. It's like for me, I can't necessarily leave the house at 6 o'clock in the morning to go work out, but I can easily throw on. Yeah, exactly. And I have my little Octo Buddy on the back of my phone, and I just put it on my glass on my door so I can like have a nice view as I'm like watching and doing it all, and it's the best. And like set up a whole vibe too. I think that's what's so nice too is we can all like create an environment for ourselves. Just like going back, if you could tell your 25-year-old self like one thing about, especially about being an entrepreneur and starting a company, what is it that you would tell yourself or teach yourself?
I think to build out my team faster. I think I waited too long to hire. And I think I felt like I had to do it all, prove it all. You know, sort of, I think we grew up in this mentality of like the what is the word?
Hustle culture.
Well, the hustle culture, but also like that female entrepreneur, that girl boss era where I don't know, there was something about I can do it all. I can do it by myself. I'm going to prove to everyone that I can. And at the end of the day, you don't have to prove that.
You don't.
And it's so important to surround yourself with smarter people than you and to have that support system around you. I think I just felt for so long that I had to do it on my own. And while it was really beneficial for me to learn all aspects of the business, and I've had my hand in all aspects of the business, I think I could have grown more had I had that support system earlier on.
That makes so much sense. And like for someone that's looking to get into like fitness entrepreneurship and start something on their own, because I feel like this has opened up a whole new industry for women, this wellness space and like this fitness space. Are there any kind of tips for that you could give?
I think in general, it doesn't even matter if you're interested in fitness. If you have something that you're passionate about and you want to build a business, I'm such a fan of having that as your side hustle. So having something, a job, an ongoing steady job that can pay the bills, and then really building out your dream, your side gig as a side hustle, building that to a place where you can eventually then leave, but so that you're taking the financial pressure off
yourself. And having more
creative
fun
endeavor.
With it.
Yes. So that's how I built the Sculpt Society. I had a full-time job still in fashion while I was building the Sculpt Society, and that allowed me to get creative. It gave me, I didn't feel any financial pressure from it in the beginning because it wasn't
like
my full-time gig.
Like a fun project. Yeah. That makes so much sense.
And then I think if you're listening to this and you are a trainer, I think it's getting the right certifications, make sure you're certified, and just take as many classes as you can. You will also learn so much. You know, anytime I go and take a different type of class, a yoga class, or even my classes, I'm like, okay, well, this is what I could have done better. This is what worked in that class. Just be constantly learning. I am still at a place where I feel like I'm constantly learning and growing as a teacher. And I think you have to have that mindset. You can't get to a place where you're like,
I know it all.
I know it all.
My method.
I certainly don't. Yeah. I'm always striving to be better.
And what kind of certifications are necessary?
Depends on what you want to go into.
Okay, yeah.
So like if you want to be a Pilates instructor, you know, there's like a whole course there.
And so what certifications do you have?
I have an ACE certification, and I'm also pre and postnatal certified with pronatal fitness.
Amazing.
So important. You know, you cannot teach a specific demo like prenatal and postnatal without having that certification. And there's so many people who are, and it's just, there's so many things that you need to know and modifications that you need to understand about the female body
in order to teach, because the form is just so important in all of this. I feel like it's the first thing that you should pay attention to, like beyond pace, beyond like looking right. It's just like form. Yeah.
Form, how you're breathing, your pelvic floor. I mean, all of that's so important. Yeah.
Okay, so I have some audience Q&A for you.
Oh gosh, I saw you posted that on
Instagram. They're fun. Okay, so one thing that we just touched on a little bit is someone asked when they can get a premenopause program.
I know.
Yes.
It's on the list. 2025, we're hoping to. My goal with the Sculpt Society is also to make sure all of my community members feel supported through all stages of life. So, we have college dorm room workouts. We have a bridal program. We have a pre and postnatal program. We're about to launch something that I can't tell, but another program for another phase of life. And then I would love to eventually have premenopausal because it's another great conversation that we're finally having in the world of fitness.
I agree. And I think that just like people are focusing more on women as a whole. And I think that for us, we shouldn't be so like tunnel vision on just like our specific demographic. Like I think it's important to service all women. Yeah. Okay, what do you eat prior to working out?
I always kind of laugh at this question because, again, that goes back to such like diet culture mindset of like, okay, 30 minutes before I eat, I'm going to have 5 grams of protein and whatever. I don't even know what the...
do you make sure to eat before working out, or sometimes maybe you don't even? It just depends.
I would say most mornings I am, because my husband's making a smoothie and he's so kind and gives me, a beautiful smoothie to have. Sometimes I wake up hungry and I like want a full meal and I'll have eggs and toast and avocado. And sometimes I'm like, I had a later dinner last night. I actually woke up feeling so full. It really depends. And I know people hate that answer because they want that prescription when it comes to quote unquote diets. So no, I really am in tune with, am I hungry? What am I craving? What's going to give me energy right now if I am wanting to eat before I work out?
Yeah, I'm the exact same as
you. And the same goes for a workout. I mean, a post-workout. Like, it's not like, oh, I must have X, Y, and Z after my workout. I just don't look at it that way.
It's like, what do I feel like right now? Or do I feel like anything?
Yeah.
Just
but by the way, I can like my like 25-year-old self hearing this would be like rolling my eyes and being like, just tell me what to do.
Exactly. Yeah, because we can be so stubborn too. And I think that also that insecurity leads us to wanting someone to just tell us what to do and give us an answer. But what we're forgetting is that we're all such individual, unique people that have different needs. And so only ourselves can give us what we need. You know what I mean?
What's going to work for me is not going to work for you.
Exactly. Like, and you can give tips and suggestions like you just did, but I think that that's what's so important in this whole thing is like really connecting with you and tuning into what feels good, the movement,
and
the
it can
food.
also be as simple as like, after I work out, if I don't eat, I feel really exhausted. But I notice that if I have something to eat after I work out, I don't feel that exhaustion. Like tune into those little cues for yourself. Or why am I feeling so exhausted at this point in my day? Am I eating something that's making me not like whatever those feelings are? Or am I not eating?
Am I not? Or am I dehydrated? I literally went to the doctor. I got a physical the other day and I said, I'm feeling really good, but like my only thing is I'm just feeling like generally lethargic. Like I just feel tired all the time. And he's like, well, obviously that could be so many different things. But he was like, the first 2 big things are hydration and sleep patterns. And I was like, well, there you go. Like I refuse to drink water. Like I can't, I hardly am thirsty, which is really weird. And I'm not one of those people that crave water, but now I've had to, like, this intuitive mentality is forcing me to be, if I'm feeling tired, be like, have you had water? Which is so simple and I should know this, but
even as listen, even I'm like in the wellness industry and I was just talking with my executive assistant about how like we both just don't drink water throughout the day. And like those are basic needs that I know I need. And I'm not setting myself up to succeed in that way.
No.
And I don't think most of us are drinking water or getting enough sleep. There's just like small little things. Are you getting outside? Or just small things that really add up.
Okay, workout routine for beginners. We kind of touched on this, but maybe you have some specific classes on your app.
Exactly. I was going to say, if you're a true beginner, make sure you're getting into the right class for your level. So we actually have a little quiz that you can take. But if you're a true beginner, we have a beginner program. If you are a beginner and you start in one of my intermediate classes, you're going to leave feeling really disheartened and unsuccessful. So there's an entire space on my app for beginners it's much more slow, more gentle. We were focusing a lot on technique. And so just make sure, I think, again, like whether it's my app or someone else's, like just you're in the right level for you.
Yeah, that makes sense. And is there anybody that you look up to or get inspired by or have in the past? Have there been any like role models or mentors?
I mean, listen, I think of like the iconic true leaders in the space, like Jane Fonda or Jackie Shepard or the Jazzercise founder. I think of like, they came up with this space in the 60s. Like they were doing dance, cardio aerobics, and sculpting.
Did you watch that show? What was that show?
Yes, Physical.
Physical.
So good.
So good. I bet that, yeah.
I just think, those are true trailblazers who've really defined an industry. And, I think of even Jane Fonda in the 80s, fast forward from the 60s, who really popularized, at-home workouts and just what she did for an entire industry. So I think about those women and I'm just so impressed with their careers.
Yeah.
But I think what's so exciting is like, this is my perspective now on dance, cardio, and sculpting, and like the new,
like you pave,
it's just
you pave your own way.
You pave your own way,
yeah, and nothing has to, like everybody is so unique that's always my message in like entrepreneurship is that just because someone else is doing it doesn't mean that you can't do it because you're you and no one else has that.
The secret sauce is you.
Secret sauce is you. Yeah. Exactly. All right. And then ideal workout schedule, which we kind of talked about, but maybe for a beginner too.
Yeah. I think again, too, with a beginner, committing to less so that you can show up more. Do not expect to go from zero with absolutely no workout routine or habit and expect in a week to be doing five workouts a week. It's like commit to 2 workouts a week. Do that for a month. Build that routine. Be consistent with it. Be successful with it. And then you start to add and build onto it. And then also follow a program. Have some, for us, we have little calendars you can print out and check things off.
Yeah, that is so helpful.
Schedule it in. Again, these are very simple things, but a lot of us aren't doing this. Schedule it into your calendar.
I do that now. I've said it enough on this podcast.
You're like, I have to do it.
Like after 5 years, I'm like, okay, now I need to schedule it in. Okay, and then any favorite workout accessories or equipment?
What I love about what I'm doing is everything can be done with no equipment. So I think when you're traveling, when you don't want to grab a piece of equipment, like the workout we did today, no equipment. If you're wanting to turn things up a notch, my favorite pieces of equipment are our ankle weights, our sliders. To me, our TSS sliders feel like you're on a reformer, which I love a reformer class. Our bands and I love a Pilates ball. So we have really great Pilates ball workouts on the Sculpt Society app.
And one last question, because I'm curious, are there any workout brands that you're loving right now?
Ooh.
Or like, where do you shop for workouts?
Roan just came out with a women's collection. And I feel like my husband's worn Roan for years. And then I feel like Athleta is like really turning things up. And then we just launched we're doing some capsule launches throughout the year for the Sculpt Society. So
cute.
That's been really fun.
Yeah. And your stuff is always like chic and neutral and like, okay, amazing. Well, where can everybody find you?
They can find me on social. I'm at Megan Roup at the Sculpt Society, same with TikTok. And if you want to try the Sculpt Society, the code WIT25 will get everyone 25% off and a free 7-day trial on our website.
Amazing. That's so nice of you. Well, thank you so much. And I'm excited for everything that we worked on to come out too, because
it's going to be special.
One, we'll have more conversations, but what you're doing, and that's in the space of like women's health and just really diving deeper into conversations regarding like women's fertility and everything's so important. So
thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I know we've had such a fun day together.
Hey, that was like the easiest podcast I've ever recorded.
Oh my God. Good.